I'm sitting up, like sitting up, and I don't have to be reclined and resting my head on anything. Um, this is the first time I've been able to do this in literally 2 weeks. And I'm in so much pain still, but I feel so good. And I have a little friend here. My sweet little Abby's with me today. I'm home, and I thought I would do a little Bruce video because it's been a whirlwind, and I was like, I need to document this. I'm watching TV, so that's why I got my glasses on because I'm an old lady now and I can't see the fucking TV without my glasses on. Frick, when did that happen? When did I can't read the guide channel without these things? So I had my CT myelogram. Why did I have a CT myelogram? Not to look at Bruce. We haven't even started really doing more investigation into Bruce yet. But Bruce is causing complications, and those complications are really big and kind of scary. And so we needed more information on 2 issues that Bruce is, digging up. Didn't want to wait for the MRI business, because that might mean to speed that MRI up might even mean having pacemaker surgery. Oh, we don't know. Which my cardiologist actually okayed that, so that was exciting. But anyhow, we're not even dealing with Bruce. This is just complications of Bruce. So had a CT myelogram to see and evaluate the shit storm that he's brewing up there. I thought it went well. I don't know. I had taken a lot of Ativan. God, I love that stuff. And then I came home and I knew I was going to have a really bad headache for a few days. I had been prepared for that, but I wasn't prepared for the back pain. I wasn't prepared for the lack of ability to stand or walk. And when I couldn't even stand long enough to brush my teeth, pardon me, I started to really get worried, and I just progressively was getting worse, not better. And I was like, uh-oh. I have a really high pain tolerance, which has never served me well. And I should know by now that I should just go in. Just go in. But I hate going in. Anyhow, I finally went in after 6 days. 6 days of having to be flat on my back because of horrific pressure in my head and pain in my head and this back pain that I just couldn't get comfortable. It was shooting down my legs, pain coming into my abdomen, and just an inability to weight bear at all. Finally went to the hospital. It was standing room only in triage. I was scared shitless. I was like, if I have to sit in a waiting room chair, I don't think I can do this. The triage nurses were amazing. They put me in a wheelchair right away and pushed me in the back right away. And there was a nurse waiting for me in my little cubicle. And she was like, I got a call from triage, heads up already about you. I've already spoken to one of our doctors. She's like, he's really busy. We are super busy today. It's going to be 20 minutes before he can even see you. And I was like, oh, shit. I've worked in the hospital long enough to know that's never a good sign. You never want to be the one that is in first. You always want to be the one that waits the longest and emerge if you're going to emerge. Anyhow, she came back about 10 minutes later and she was like, he's just super tied up. She's like, so I'm pulling our doctor from fast track over here to acute care to take a look at you because I just need somebody to look at you right away. She's like, your vitals just aren't that great and you're gray. Like, I know I'm gray. My color was just not good. I was not doing well. So long story short, I had spinal fluid and shit leaking into my back from the injection site at from the myelogram, which can happen. It's a side effect. It's a risk. When I sign the consent form, it's written on there. it's just a little bit more complicated because of the complications of Bruce and what he's doing in my brain. So it's a little bit of a bigger deal than it would have been if it was just a normal person having, say, this type of myelogram for like a herniated disc or something like that. Because of Bruce and the shit going on in my head, this was a pretty big deal. So that was really scary. And I just couldn't process it. So I just kind of cried. I've been doing a lot of that lately, just crying. That's what I do. I guess that's why my eyes are so freaking puffy. Anyhow, she paged anesthesiology. He was in a surgery. He finally came down later in the evenings, and he's like, yeah, we're going to do a procedure. We're going to plug that hole. And he wheeled me up himself in a wheelchair. He's like, do you need to go on a stretcher? And I was like so drugged up. They were really good. Pain medication wise. They were like, what do you need? What do you want? And I was like, no, I can go in a chair. Yeah, sure, I can sit. I feel great now. So yeah, I got into the wheelchair and I'm like, you're pushing me up? And he was like, yeah, you've had this leak in your lower back for 6 days. We're going to plug your hole right now. We're not going to wait for a porter or a nurse. I'm going to just take you up. And I was like, oh, you're so sweet. He was terrible. I think we hit the wall twice. We hit the door. I was holding doors. We really should have just waited for a porter. Because, 9 o'clock at night, there's nobody to help you and all the doors are locked. It was kind of a shit show, but he was so sweet. So we're in the elevator and he's kind of explaining it to me, what was happening. And I was like, yeah, I Googled it. I'm like, it sounds easy enough. It's basically an injection. And he's like, yeah, basically an injection. And then he's like, so we just finished surgery and the girls are just getting ready for you. And he's like, and it worked out well. We didn't have to call anybody back in. He's like, we got 2 OR nurses and 2 recovery nurses. And I was like, that's 4. Why do we need 4 nurses for just a little injection? Like, this is just, a little boop, boopity boop in my back. We don't need. So anyhow, we get up there and I see this is not just the internet is wrong. I'm going to tell you, the internet makes it sound like it was easy peasy lemon squeezy, and it was not. You need all 4 nurses. It was horrific. It's not just injection. So, and we get in there and I realize, what the fuck is going on? And I looked at him and I was like, yeah, so I'm going to need some Advan. I'm a real huge fan of it. And I'd like lots. So, a lot. And he's like, well, we're going to give you really good drugs. Are you sure? I'm like, I'm very sure. I'm very, very, very sure. And he goes, okay, we'll give it to you. They were so sweet. So anyhow, this transfer over onto the stretcher and they get me all in position and I'm sitting. I had to sit up for it. Oh, no, sorry. Before that, I lay down. They'd take the blood out of my arm first. And I can't remember the procedure for it, but it's not like the regular blood. I'd have to ask my cousin Megan. She's a lab tech. She would know. But they used this like weird metal needle and it was straight up and down and it had to be under pressure. They had to use the blood pressure cuff on my arm to like get a good squirt. Anyhow, it was like a venous draw almost. Maybe that's what it was called. I can't remember. They told me the name. I was getting high at this point because they had given me the Ativan. And I kept saying to them, it's not kicking in yet. It's not kicking in. And they were like, it will, Steph. It will. Just relax. Which it did kick in. It was a lot of blood. It was 10 mLs they needed for the blood patch in my back. So anyhow, they took that out of my arm and then they told me I had to sit up. And I was like, I can't sit up. Like, can't you do this business with me sedated and laying down? And they were like, no, you got to be awake and sitting up. That's why we gave you the Ativan, remember? And he's like, we're going to give you some fentanyl first. Do you have any allergies to fentanyl? Because it's really going to hurt. So we want to make sure that you're in pain. You're not in pain. And I was like, oh, I enjoy fentanyl. And then she started to laugh. And their nurse is like, well, at least you're being honest. And I was like, if there's one thing about me, it is I am honest. So, bring on the fentanyl, please. So yeah, they loaded me up with the fentanyl. And I'm going to tell you, with the fentanyl, the Ativan, and all the other shit I had on board, I felt everything. And that was probably the most painful experience of my adult life. One nurse was like holding me, like hugging me, holding my shoulders like this. And I had a pillow here. And then the other nurse was behind me with like her hands, you can't even see me, I'm like this. She was like clamped with my hips down, like pushing them into the bed so I did not move. And then the other two were like, all like in sterile procedure. I don't know what they were doing. They were helping the doctor. And yeah, I just cried. I cried. Ugly girl cried. Boogers coming out of my nose. Ugly girl cried. Most horrific pain I've ever felt in my entire life. Literally. And I've been through a lot, especially with my endometriosis. Remember when I was going, those of you who have been with me a long time, you guys know, remember when I was doing those injections at BC Women's? Remember what my belly looked like? It was like black and blue for a year. Those horrific injections when we were trying to like kill those nerves. And I'd cry. I'd just lay there and cry and cry and cry. And then I'd have to drive home. Yeah. Nothing compared to this. I think I'd rather, instead of having another blood patch, I think I'd rather just have my arm cut off with no anesthesia. So anyhow, after it was done, and I was traumatized for life, the nurse washed my face with a hot face cloth. Oh, see? That's why some people are just meant to be in the healthcare field, because that is a core, like that just to me was just heaven. Like I had been crying, I had boogers on my face, I had blood all over me because that doctor was messy when he took the blood out of me. I was scared, I was upset. That Ativan did not work. I swear. The fentanyl did not work. All the other drugs did not work. I was upset. I literally just wanted my mom. I'm 41 years old and I just wanted my mom and dad. Like I was just, and actually was asking for them. And I'm laying there and I'm crying, and she went and got a hot face cloth and she wiped my face. Right? Like, so for my girlfriends who are nurses, girls, you don't get paid enough. Anyhow, and then started my 18 hours of flat bed rest. Most people don't need 18 hours after a blood patch, but most people don't have Bruce. And so I couldn't even lift my head to eat. I could roll it, and then the nurse would like help me eat, or my mom would help me eat, or drink with a little straw. But I was just in so much pain and so out of it. I had no appetite. I didn't even want to eat. I don't even think I ate for those entire 18 hours. What did I have? I had a couple bites of something. I can't even remember at this point. Oh, Karen brought me a Starbucks, or my mom brought me a Starbucks, I think, at one point, and I drank that with a straw, and that was just freaking heaven. Yeah, so 18 hours, sorry. I was going to say 15. Wouldn't that have been nice? No, it was 18 hours of laying flat, and peeing flat. And I couldn't lift my back because that was sore. And I had to have the bedpan underneath. And I'm going to tell you, that was just not a walk in the park. That was That was probably the peeing was probably just as traumatic as the blood patch. At one point, it was like the nurse came in. She's like, "Are you done?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." And I've somehow peed on my socks. And she started to laugh, and she's like, "Yeah, and all over your pajamas." She's like, "Let's just change your bed for the 4th time today." I was like, "Yeah, okay." Like, it was literally just so dehumanizing. Like, it was fucking awful. Again, nurses do not get paid enough after the 18 hours. And they were like, "You get to get up to go pee." I was like, "Well, isn't that a Christmas present?" Woo! But I still had to be on bed rest. Anyhow, day 3 in the hospital, I finally got to go home. And the doctor was like, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "It doesn't even matter how I'm feeling. I'm ready to go home." But anyhow, my little baby did come and see me. And when he came to see me, even though I could only sit for like 20 minutes, half an hour at a time, I didn't even care. Just holding that fat little Chubosaurus was just, ugh. He's my medicine, that little baby. Frickman, and he's so cute with those blue eyes. Honestly, Derek and Karen make the most beautiful children. And he was so good in the bed and so happy, and he was flirting with all the nurses. He's so freaking cute. I love that kid. He's my heart. Ugh, he's my heart. Yeah, so anyhow, day 3, finally got to go home. And that was a bad decision. I make a lot of bad decisions in my life, and that was one of them. Coming home. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I guess all the drugs had wore off. I didn't realize how efficient all those IV drugs were. And the pain was so bad. So I drugged myself up the best I could with what I had at home and called my family doctor, who is another woman that does not get paid enough for what she does. She's just so amazing, that woman. And she was like, blood patches can fail, is one thing she's like that we need to be aware of. And she's like, just go to VGH. She's like, you need a neuro consult. She's like, this is above my pay grade. This is above most people's pay grade. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why you're in so much pain. Just go. So we got in the car and we drove the hour and a half to VGH. And it was crazy. It was like a bad movie. It was like a bad horror movie. And I've worked in Emerge 15 years, and our Emerge has been bad, and I've got some great stories to tell you, but I feel like that night, I don't know if it was just because I was so sensitive, but that night was like extra crazy. This guy was like high on God knows what, blood pouring out of his foot. He's like screaming. His girlfriend's dancing to no music next to him. The other guy is like covered under blankets and keeps like pulling it down and like talking to himself and talking to us and pulling it back up and then screaming at everybody. Like, it was so loud. It was so crazy. There was so many people tweaked out on everything. So much drug abuse. Like, it was so dirty. I was convinced I was going to get COVID or C. diff. I was like, Mom, don't touch anything. I made my dad go sit in the car because I was just like one less person to catch something. Like, just go sit in the truck. So it was so busy, and the triage nurse was like, yeah, it's going to be 6 to 8 hours. And I'm like, well, I might have a failed blood patch. Like, I might have like spinal fluid leaking in my back. I'm like, does that still mean I'm going to wait 6 to 8 hours? Like, I'm still going to wait the same amount of time as that lady right there with the cut on her thumb. And she goes, yep. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, so do you still want to wait? And I was like, I don't have a choice. Like, I can hardly stand. And my family doctor has told me specifically to come here because my neurosurgeon has privileges here. And she's like, okay. Honestly. I feel bad for her, because if she's treating people like that, what kind of stress has she been under? Like, what kind of quality, like, that's the quality of care she's giving. So, you know, what kind of shifts has she had? Like, anyhow, she needs to retire. Second triage nurse I saw, he was great. He's like, oh, the wait's up to 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours. He's like, but I'm going to get you in as soon as possible. He's like, your vitals aren't looking good. Because my heart tends to drop when my pain gets bad. Like, my heart just doesn't like shit, right? So long story short, finally got in. The Emerge doc I saw said the same thing. He was like, this is above my pay grade. Like, he's like, I don't know what's going on. He's like, I don't know why you're in this pain. Like, that's not normal. He's like, but your blood work's showing that the blood patch should have worked. So that was a relief. But they admitted me overnight because they just, safety. Like, when you got this much going on in your brain, and this much chaos, and it's just not simple. It's not like it's just Bruce. There's just other things that are just even things that I don't understand, and I have a pretty good understanding of brain pathology, and it's still, I don't even have a full grasp of everything. Anyhow, finally got the neurology consult, and he was just like, I'm so sorry to say this to you, but there's nothing we can do. It's just, when you have this much swelling in the brain and Bruce taking up this much space, and then we go ahead and we put 10 mLs of fluid, blood, in the spinal cord and brain. He's like, that is just so much pressure. There is only so much room in your skull. And he's like, that's painful. And he's like, it's horrifically painful. And he's like, they shouldn't have let you go home. And he's like, we're just going to drug you up, and we really need that blood to get absorbed and do its job, and the CSF to mix in there and, circulate, absorb, blah, blah, blah. And you just got to ride it out. And I was like, okay. So he sent me home and said, you got to be on bed rest for, another few days. He's like, you'll feel it. You'll feel the pressure release in your head where it's no longer pressure. It's just a headache. And he goes, and that's when you can ease up on the bed rest and slowly stand up and walk around more. And he's like, you'll know. He's like, you'll know. You'll just wake up one morning and you'll just know. And I'm already starting to feel it. I'm already starting to feel the ease and the pressure release and the healing. But I tell you, it's been a roller coaster, and I'm realizing that Bruce is in charge. And emotionally, I am not prepared for this. I am not prepared for this one tiny ounce. Yeah. And I'm scared shitless, because this was just one tiny hiccup. This is just the beginning. This is just the start. This was one procedure and one complication from one procedure. And that's how big of a thing we are dealing with. And I mean, I've dealt with the heart thing and the endometriosis and all that kind of stuff. And that I thought was big, but it's not. This is the brain, and this is the nerve system. And this is just so much bigger than anything I have ever comprehended. And in these last 2 weeks, I have realized just how big this is, just how serious this is. And I'm scared. I'm scared shitless. She's not. She is, she's snoring. But I'm going to be okay. I have amazing family. My family was just freaking rock stars. They were cheering me on, and just so much support from like obviously my close-knit family to my extended family. My cousins, I've got some great cousins that were just like, we're here. My aunt, she's like the leader, I think, of my little raging war against Bruce. Like, she's, I don't know, team captain against Bruce, I guess we'll call her. And then my two besties, Holly and Andrea. Man, I'm so lucky. So yeah. And of course, all my other girlfriends and friends and family. But yeah, I'm going to be able to do this, I think. I don't know. But it's fucking scary. It's fucking scary. Anyhow. So that's your very long-winded Bruce's update. And we'll see. Next week I hear from my neurosurgeon and we get more information on where we go from here. How we deal with these complications that Bruce has stirred up, and when we even just start dealing with Bruce, because we haven't even done that yet, and I'm exhausted. Ugh.